How would you like to make over $3,500 of net cash flow every single month going forward? That's after all your expenses. That's the amount you can put in your pocket on a $265,000 turnkey 2-unit investment that's a solid brick property built in 1965. I'm going to walk you through this deal right now. This is an actual deal that exists on the market today that a member of my coaching program just brought to analyze, and it's a phenomenal deal. It cash flows really, really well. And I'm going to share with you what makes this such a great deal so that you can replicate this process going forward. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Kirby Atwell, and every single week now, I work with people through this very specific short-term rental strategy to find these really, really high cash flowing short-term rentals, very similar to the one that I'm going to share with you in this video. So if you're interested in working with me through this process of finding, buying, and setting up a really high cash flowing short-term rental of your own, you can set up a call with me or my team member at the link below. It's in the description if you scroll down below, and we can talk through the details of the program and see if it's a good fit for your goals. All right, so without further ado, here are the details of what makes this deal a 37% cash on cash return on a turnkey 2-unit property. So let's dive right into it. So this is the deal itself, which is probably not what a lot of people expected when you talk about a really high-performing short-term rental. So here's the pictures of the deal. You can see that this was built in the late 60s, and it is a solid brick property. To rebuild this property from scratch would be much more expensive than what it's selling for at $269,900 right now. And so you can see each side is 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. So total is 4 bedrooms, 2 bath. Each side's 2 bedroom, 1 bath, but it also has this huge unfinished basement. And then each side also has a garage. But you can see these units are in really great shape. They've been somewhat recently rehabbed. It's been used as a long-term rental, but it's been really, really well kept. Has a really nice backyard as well. So you could put some shared amenities back there for both units to use. This is where the property is located, Baroda, Michigan. Yeah. So it's just outside of Bridgman in kind of the western side of Michigan, right on Lake Michigan. And we're pretty familiar with this area. This just south of here on the southern tip of Lake Michigan is where we invest in most of our properties. But this whole area is just a really big hotbed for short-term rentals because this is where Chicago is on this side. And so people from Chicago want to get away, and it's a great place to get away for a weekend or a week or summertime, and you can be on the lake, and there's lots of wineries and restaurants and all kinds of stuff to do. So Baroda itself, and this is kind of the strategy that I recommend. Baroda itself is not the prime vacation area. The price points are going to be much lower. Like a lot of people will vacation to Bridgman or Stevensville or Benton Harbor. You know, these are much more popular vacation rental areas. And so the property values are much higher, but the nightly rates aren't that much higher. If you buy just outside of the more prime areas, what you'll find is that you can get a really good deal on the property and the nightly rates can be pretty similar. Once you go over to the next step that I recommend, so I always recommend look at the listing, then look at the map, and if there's a street view, look at that. There wasn't a street view for this one, but then I recommend going to AirDNA just to see what the averages are in the area and to see, you know, what the seasons look like and that sort of thing. So for this area, it's 50% average occupancy and a 315 average daily rate. When you look at the occupancy curve, you can see that this is a pretty seasonal market. Gets down January. Yeah, actually February is the lowest. So we're right in the lowest months right now. It's 23% occupancy, but then in July it gets up to 73%. And if you have a great listing, obviously these are averages. So if you have a great listing, it'll be even higher than that. There's just so much demand for this area in the summertime. So you really want to capitalize on that. And rates are going to be a lot higher in the summertime. So from there, I always recommend looking at the comps themselves. I only buy based off of current data. I never speculate and say, well, I'm just going to build this and kind of hope people are going to show up, right? I want to see other comparable short-term rentals right in that area so that I can make sure I replicate what works really well and what leads to the highest performing short-term rentals. So you can see there's several right in this area that are performing really well, and several that are similar. So this one is a 2-bedroom property, 182 reviews. So obviously it's been booked a lot, and it's 4.99 star rating. So very similar type of property. Here's a 3-bedroom. It's got a hot tub. Here's a 1-bedroom. It's kind of attached to a couple other buildings Here's a 4-bedroom. So you can scroll through and you can kind of hover over these and see where they're located in conjunction with the subject property, which would be right here, and then pull up each one of these. So this one I think is a great one. So Stevensville is right next door, and it's 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and it's a very similar style and type of property. When you look at this one, you can scroll down. You can see it's got great reviews, but you can scroll down and you can look at the calendar and you can see in different seasons what the nightly rate is. This one is booked out for about half of February here. And so in the slowest month of the year, they're charging $194. And you're mostly going to rent on the weekends in the slow months. So that's where I put the most emphasis on the nightly rates. And this also includes the cleaning fee and Airbnb's fees. So just keep that in mind. They just show you one nightly rate, but behind the scenes, the host has added in their cleaning fee and 14% Airbnb fee. So you have to subtract that out. So this one is probably for 3 nights going to be closer to like $150 a night in February. And then you can look in March and see, like, does it go up? Most likely a little bit will go up. It's the same actually in March. Some people don't really understand pricing and kind of just charge the same thing all year round, and they're leaving a lot of money on the table, but a lot of people understand dynamic pricing based on supply and demand now. When you get into May, so they have it blocked off after May 13th, but when you get into May, it's up to $245. And so that's 1 2-bedroom. Then you go on to the next 2-bedroom, and this is that Blue Barn place. And you can look at the pictures and listing quality and everything, make sure you have a comparable type of unit, but lots of bookings already on the calendar. You know, we're sitting here in February and they have the next 6 months, there's bookings every single month. So they're at $190 in February. Half of March is already booked out. They're at $185. And then July, you can see July is completely booked. That's the biggest week or the biggest month out of the year in this area. And then June is mostly booked as well. And that is because, again, some people don't understand pricing and they're at the exact same price in July in their most high demand month as they are in their least high demand month in February. They're leaving a ton of money on the table. So you know you could charge a lot more because they already have their whole July booked out in February, and they could probably get substantially more nightly for this. Here's one that's a great comp. It's got 238 reviews with 4.99 ratings. So they do a great job on this. 2 bedrooms also, and they've got most weekends booked out. They're at 134 in March here. And then when you get into July again, like lots of bookings in July already, and they're at 236 in their peak month. So you can look through all these. It's that small 1-bedroom and see like the difference between a 1-bedroom and the 2 bedrooms. So this one's at 284, which is probably why they don't have too many bookings and a lot less over time. And so you can see at the price sensitivity here. So at 284, they're not getting too many bookings for a 1-bedroom. So looking at these comps and analyzing these comps, it gives you a really kind of tight window. You're never going to get an exact nightly rate and occupancy, but a pretty tight window of where you need to be. And then you come over to your analyzer tool. And if you want a link to this tool, just type analyzer in the chat below or in the comments below, and I'll shoot you a link to the analyzer tool so you can use this as well. And you can plug numbers in. But basically what you do is just fill in the gray cells and the yellow cells will calculate automatically. Obviously, you know what you're going to buy it for. You can estimate kind of ballpark closing costs after repair value. So if you put in a little bit of work into it and furnish it, what's it going to be worth? Annual property taxes, you get that off the MLS or off the realtor.com listing. An estimate of insurance, and then we're estimating about $25,000 of updates needed on this one. And then it's probably going to be closer to $30,000 in furnishings. So between repairs and furnishings, it's going to be about $55,000. And then most DSCR lenders are going to give you 75% of what the purchase price is. So you can Google DSCR lenders. I have several that I recommend as well that I'm happy to share with you. But at 75% LTV, that means a loan of $198,000 and then a $66,000 down payment. And you can even combine a DSCR loan with a private money loan to cover the down payment and repair costs and the furnishing costs. And even if you did that, you'd still have several $1,000s a month of net cash flow on this property. I'll show you actually what that looks like after this. So right now, we're just going to do the DSCR loan with our own down payment. And then this is how the numbers shake out in terms of income and expenses. So we're estimating about $220 on average for 4 months out of the year. So these are the peak 4 months, 120 days of peak season. and we're going to estimate about 85% occupancy. So this is when in the summertime when there's a ton of demand in that area, and you can charge $220 on average. I think this is pretty conservative, but I always like to go on the most conservative end of the spectrum. Then in the low season, which is the other 245 days of the year, which includes collar seasons, in the fall, spring, there's still some demand there in a little bit higher price point. But on average, throughout the other 8 months out of the year, there's going to be an average of $140 a night and a 50% occupancy. So half the time it's just going to sit vacant. Both units will sit vacant. And if that's the case, we're going to be at $79,000 of gross income, and then add in your cleaning fees, which are paid separate, a total of $85,000 of gross income on this $265,000 property. On a monthly basis, that breaks down to $7,100 of gross income, and then you can see how your expenses flow through based on what you've put in already. And then, we're estimating about $500 a month, and then lawn and snow removal, and then consumables and maintenance. So we're left with $3,500 of expenses. So when we look at the total calculations here, and this is all calculated automatically for you, the total income is $85,000. The total expenses are $42,000. So that leaves us with a net cash flow of $3,559 on a monthly basis. So I changed one of the numbers here. I added a little bit more in furnishing costs, and that brought my net cash flow down a little bit and my cash on cash return a little bit as well. So it was like 36 or 37% cash on cash, but added a little bit more as a buffer for the furnishing costs. So I always talk about the 1% net rule that I buy based off of. So if I buy a property for $265,000, that means I would like to see 1% net cash flow on a monthly basis. So that means $2,650 of net income after all my expenses, which includes a set aside. I don't know if you noticed that, but I've got a set aside for maintenance here, which we're not going to use every month, but you're going to have capital expenditures at some point. You're going to have updates. You're going to have little handyman fixes here and there. And so you want to accumulate maintenance over time. So that includes a set aside for maintenance. It includes my utilities, my lawn care, everything that I can think of in terms of expenses. And we're still left with $3,500. So it's well over that 1% net. I mean, if you were to buy this with cash and no leverage, you're still making 13% return on your cash. But with leverage in place, you're at a 33% return just from the cash flow. So that doesn't account for any appreciation, doesn't count for any tax benefits. It's just cash flow. There's 33% cash on cash return, and you're pocketing $3,500 every single month. I absolutely love sharing case studies like this with you because it's detailed data. Like, these are actual deals that are out there right now. A lot of people who are kind of like short-term rental gurus like to talk about these big flashy deals, and a lot of them were like COVID era deals, and those are the numbers that they use. But these are deals we're doing every single day. And the return cannot be touched by any of the higher end, more expensive deals. Like if you buy the right small multi-unit property in the right area, just outside of the mainstream areas, typically in these more affordable areas, it just cash flows phenomenally well. So again, if you're interested in working with me on a deal similar to this, set up a call with me at the link in the description, and we can talk through the details of the program. But in the meantime, I really appreciate you checking out this video. And if you can do me a favor and hit the like button, and also share this video with someone else who you think might get value out of it. Thanks again. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.